Hello everybody to another SciCraft episode. So today we got big plans for the quarry. We want to automate it even further. So until now we always needed a player present at the quarry to load the area. But we actually want to run the quarry while nobody's in the server, and that's why we set up a chunk loading grid. So there are a lot of steps involved to make this work. So first of all, we need to keep the nether dimension and the overworld dimension loaded while nobody is on the server. In order to do that, we shoot an item through a nether portal every 14 seconds. So here we actually have a switch that would activate the system. So it just goes down there, there's a redstone line that activates the, more or less the portal that you use to load the iron farm. So the signal from the lever would come in from here, and this deactivates this sticky piston, which no longer blocks this dropper that is responsible for shooting cobblestone items through a portal into the nether. And this keeps both the overworld and the nether dimension loaded. Also, let's seal this off. Server is totally not safe. The items on the other side of the portal are just destroyed by fire. Could actually make a system to recycle the items again, send them back from the nether to the overworld, put it back into storage again. But because of our nether portal situation at spawn, this would be quite a problem, because the other overworld portal would generate about 300 blocks away in non-spawn chunks. So we would need to make a 5x5 hopper grid there again to send them back here, which is quite some effort, also creates some lag. So we just use cobblestone items that are replenished. So once the storage would run low, the cobble farm at spawn, which is powered by Wither, is turned back on, and then chest is filled up. Let's also go to the nether side. Is there a way into the portal? No, then we make one. Okay, so you can see the fire, items are destroyed, and here we are exactly at 0, in the nether, which is kind of important, because this chunk is also loaded now every 14 seconds by the item that goes through the portal. So we are still at 0, but this time a few blocks higher, so on top of the bedrock, and that's where our dummy chunk loading grid starts. So in order to fully understand this, I would definitely recommend to watch Gnembon's video. You can find a link in the video description where he explains in detail how everything works. So Gnembon is our chunk loading guru. In fact, he also built all the hoppers here and the whole chunk loading array at the quarry. And so the basic idea of what we do here is to load a dummy area. So the chunks on the diagonals of the world have a higher priority to be unloaded. Every 45 seconds the game tries to unload exactly 100 chunks that aren't directly loaded by the player. So this is just a mechanism that makes sure that the game runs smooth, so the chunks that aren't directly loaded by the player get unloaded, so they won't cause any lag issues. But this 45-second unloading cycle is also a problem for normal chunk loading grids. So if you just do any simple chunk loading grid, then every 45 seconds the game would unload this chunk loading grid for one game tick. And that's already enough to make a quarry crash. So we have to make sure that this area at the quarry is loaded 100% of the time. And we could use this chunk unloading priority, because the game only attempts to unload 100 chunks, and if you have chunks with a lower priority to be unloaded, then they would stay loaded. And all the chunks on the diagonals, they have the highest priority to be unloaded. So basically we have a dummy grid here for all of the lowest priority, which would get unloaded every 45 seconds, 100 of those. And then all the chunks at the quarry, they have the lower priority. So let's try over there. I think it's about 500 blocks away from here, where the actual grid starts. So 1000 blocks. So We can also turn on the chunk borders F3 and G. So you can see all those hoppers on the chunk borders. And it basically always keep the next chunk loaded. So here we are. Here we could actually turn the system on and off. So this goes on for a few blocks. Okay, so now we have the dummy chunk loading grid, which is now loaded by 0, 0, where we shoot an item from the overworld into the nether. Now let's head over to the quarry where we have the other chunk loading grid. So this is just dummy in order to keep the priority low for the other ones. Okay, so here we arrived on top of the quarry, and as you can see, Gnembon was also quite busy here. We need to load approximately 1000 chunks, and there's a hopper on each chunk border. Let's also try to see it from the top. As you can see, this is quite a chunk loaded grid. And all of those chunks, they have a lower priority to be unloaded every 45 seconds than the dummy chunks we've seen before. So that's why this area would stay loaded 24/7, 100% of the time. In this corner here we have the on and off switch at the moment. So at the moment we disable the outer ring of hoppers that will point inwards later. To not use this at the moment. Once we flick this lever here, then redstone dust line would be unpowered, and the hopper loading grid is activated. Also we have a 2-minute timer here, so just set up a lot of comparators, some ugly redstone. So after 2 minutes, this would the piston would extend, activating this dropper line, which me and Efforts built yesterday, which goes down to the clock that controls the whole quarry. So here we go. Would activate this piston, redstone block gets extended, more delay, a few seconds, and then it goes to this redstone dust line, which would turn on the clock for the quarry. Let's also put this redstone dust back here so we can re-enable it, and this would start the whole quarry. Let's also quickly check the progress of the quarry. So I'm just recording this 3 days after the last episode. So now we have almost 1.3 million netherrack mined and turned into nether brick. And by now we also have 6 shulker boxes filled with nether quartz, which is quite nice. Okay, now let's head back up. So we are back in this corner where we would activate the chunk loading grid again, and also with a delay of a little bit over 2 minutes, activate the quarry again. So we need this 2-minute time frame because the player also unloads chunks if he moves around, which could break the quarry. So let's do F3 and G. So if I would move into or across the chunk border, then we would load a whole line of chunks, 16 chunks away, but also unload the chunks behind us. And this is independent of this 45-second chunk unloading grid. It's immediately. The chunks would be reloaded again by the hoppers, but they are unloaded for 1 game tick, which isn't an issue. So basically we turn this on, then we have 2 minutes, we hop into the piston bolt, leave the area, and the quarry will be turned on 2 minutes later. There's just one little problem. If we re-enter this area from the piston bolt, almost on the opposite side, over here, we would need to go to the corner again to deactivate the quarry. But this is an issue because the quarry is so huge, it would actually be out of render distance, and we would unload chunks where the quarry could potentially be in. So we would basically need to activate and deactivate the quarry from here, which would be better. So the idea is that this redstone lamp would be turned on. We have the lever here, and we also stay in this chunk if you turn the quarry back off again. So the quarry could run at the bottom here, moving left and right. Takes up to 6 minutes for the fastest part to reach for the quarry. So we need to wait about 6 or 7 minutes here until we can move around this chunk loading grid if you turn off the quarry again. So my idea is now to basically just make a simple redstone dust line, move the lever here, also make a little clock that indicates that you have waited 6 or 7 minutes, and if the line of redstone lamps is turned off, then you could move around in the quarry area safely again. Okay, so I also put in the redstone dust line, which leads to the corner. So once I flick the lever, turn this on, then the chunk loading grid starts, and then I have 2 minutes to leave the area, which should be no problem at all, because the piston ball is right next to it. I also set this pulse extender turns on, a cooldown timer. Once I come back, I have to stay in this chunk, wait the 8 minutes until all lamps are turned back off again. Okay, now we're actually gonna do it. I'm gonna turn this on and leave the area, and the quarry will be running while nobody's there. Could even leave the server, but at the moment XCOM and methods are on. But yeah, even if nobody's on the server, the quarry would still run 24/7. This was probably a little bit much for 10 minutes of explanation. I would definitely recommend to watch Gnembon's video on the whole matter. He explains it in more detail. I think he also wants to make a separate video or SciCraft episode about this chunk loading grid in particular. Also, recommend watching that. Alright, so after this very technical beginning of the episode, let's do something a little bit more simple. Let's get some llamas, because I need them for a future project. So I'm here at the end dimension at our wheat farm, and you might notice you need hay bales to breed and tame the llamas. So I'm gonna pick up about 50,000 hay bales from here, bring most of it to the main storage, and just bring a shulker box of hay bales with me so I can tame the llamas. This is the wheat farm we've built last year. It was a very large scale project. We get about 140,000 wheat per hour from those towers here. We have 200 villages in there, and it's quite crazy. So let's find some llamas. So llamas generate in extreme hills and savanna plateau biomes. The wiki says they usually generate on top of hills, but I think it's just a little bit naive who wrote that. They generate at every Y value. I guess somebody just observed that they sometimes spawn on hills and put it in a wiki. Everybody can participate at the wiki, so I have to be a little bit careful. If something sounds naive, then it's probably not true. Okay, so all the extreme hill biomes around 00 have been explored. So I went out to about X 7000 on the overworld. I'm gonna make an obsidian portal here to go to the other side. And the plan is to get the llamas for some technical projects. So they're kind of useful for elevators, because they are one white mob that is 2 blocks high, and you can ride them. So they're useful for elevators, fast ones. During the snapshots for 1.11, we made a llama elevator together with Doc M, which got fixed later. Still, I think we could make a 20 meters per second elevator with the llamas, which is reliable, which is still quite good. So I checked on the midst. We should find an extreme hill biomes on the other side here. Loading terrain. So we've never been there. Takes a little bit longer, and this looks like the plains. I'll check the midst again. I've checked the midst, but I probably should have taken a look around. Or there you can see the extreme hill biome. So now let's try to find some llamas. Actually, let's fly. Let's see if they really spawn on top of hills. Because I doubt it. So we have cows. So checked in the extreme hills biomes, cows, pigs, sheep, and llamas would generate. No rabbits, and also no what's the other type? Horses. Horses would generate in the savanna plateau biome, where also the llamas would generate. So if you want to make a llama farm, passive mob farm, an extreme hills biome, then you also need to take care of the other animals. Oh, perfect. So here we have the llamas. Now let's see if we could tame them with the hay bales. Okay, let's get a turn of mob sounds. Okay, let's ride them. And they got immediately tamed. Okay, so this is the interesting part. Llamas have certain strength values, and it determines how much items they could carry. So I think the normal default llamas that you can find have up to 3 strength, and they could have 5 in total, but I guess for the last 2 stages you have to breed them like to horses. But the chances are a little bit better, so I guess there's like a 3% chance to advance to the next stage if you have 2 llamas with strength 3. And if you have a strength 4 llama, that's also kind of interesting. If wolves attack llamas, the llamas would spit back. And if the llama has strength 4 or 5, the wolf would flee, which is kind of interesting because I want to use it for a mob sorter later. So now the plan is to get some strength 5 llamas. Who knows, maybe I'll also need the transport capacity at some point. So I tamed all the llamas. I think I was quite lucky. 3 of them had the highest strength value for a wild one. I don't think you can get wild ones with 4 or 5, but I'm not entirely sure. Did some testing, some creative, and yeah, the highest was always 3. Anyway, 2 of them only had 1. They died. And now I want to bring them down into this valley, which is quite nice. This is quite steep, so I don't want to risk the lives of our new llamas. But luckily I found a little entrance tunnel which was abandoned. So now we can actually test that caravanning function. I've never done it before. I could imagine that it's, of course the lead breaks immediately. Doesn't work as well. We'll find out. So this is a much safer way down there. It's not as steep. At least they're following me. Okay. And this is the old entrance I found. Somebody must have been here before. Okay, let's go in there. Yeah, come along. Of course this tunnel didn't generate with the world, I built it up a few minutes ago. I wanted to test my theory if a random spam of greenery and stone brick types looks half decent. So not much thought process went into this, just removed some blocks, placed other blocks randomly instead, tried to make it look a little bit uneven, then brought over some saplings and other decoration blocks, and didn't use much light. And something like this mostly works in Minecraft. Despite my limited building skills, I'm mostly focused on technical stuff. I guess you can't go wrong with something like this. And I'm also in the mood for building a little bit. Doesn't happen often. So I try to make this place look nice. So next step is building a little cottage and a little area for the llamas. And here we are again. I built up a little cottage and an area for the llamas. Something too special, just to give it a little bit of atmosphere. So put in some furniture in here even. Sometimes I also like simple stuff like that. It reminds me of the first time I played Minecraft. And just a little bit of atmosphere. Meanwhile, also something really infuriating happened. Our server provider went down just for a minute and the player files got deleted. So my complete inventory was gone. And also the contents of my ender chests were gone. And I started at spawn again. So I had to re-equip and head back here. Also, I started breeding the llamas, which is also not that great, because there's also a bug since 2 years in the game. If you feed hay bales or golden apples to horses or llamas, you get somehow zoomed. You can see here. We have the hearts, but you get zoomed around for some reason. So that makes it really annoying to breed those llamas. Terrible. At least if you use the hay bales on the little ones, that doesn't take long anymore, and then you could check them out. The chance to get a strength 4 llama is quite small, just a little bit over 1%. And in order to check, I'll just put a chest on them. Of course, all my chests are gone because I had them in my inventory. Also, my wood is gone. I guess I have to head back to the storage system to check those llamas. Okay, I brought some chests from the main storage, so let's check this llama out. And it just has strength 2. So it's not really useful. I have to get rid of it. So I'm only keeping the strength 3 llamas. Still with strength 3 llamas, it's quite unlikely they get a strength 4 one. The chance is just 1%. So I have to do a lot of breeding, and the breeding is really annoying, because if the llama can't breed, then you would mount it if you right-click it. This is so annoying. So every time you try to mount as a breeder llama, you mount it. And of course you don't know which llama has bred before, so either get warped around if you have success, or you mount it. Great. This is such a typical merging synchro that this doesn't get fixed right away. Also shows that, yeah, how many people actually breed llamas in Minecraft and how useless this mob is actually. So the bug report that I found has 14 upvotes until now. Yeah, I guess shows how many people try to breed llamas so far. So I've been breeding those llamas for over an hour now. No luck so far, no strength 4 llama. I also checked the wiki again to see how it works exactly. So there's apparently even a chance to get a wild strength 4 or strength 5 llama, but it's just 0.8% for each value. And if you breed llamas, then the stronger llama is always the important one. So for example, if I have a strength 1 and a strength 3 llama, then it would take a random value from 1 to 3, and with a 3% chance, it adds one level. So there's in total a 1% chance to get a strength 4 llama. Yeah, now I'm thinking about what to do to get a strength 4, strength 5 llama. Search around to find a wild one, or keep breeding, because you have to breed 100 llamas to get one. On average, that has strength 4, and then there's 1 to 4% chance to get 4 plus 1, so 0.75 for strength 5 if you have a strength 5 llama as a stronger parent. Those are all strength 3. Now I know that I could also use weaker llamas. I guess I'll mark them just with carpets, so strength 3 is orange and the weaker ones have a different color, and try to breed those together so I put it a little bit faster. But I'm also running out of time. I guess this is a good point to end the episode. Between episodes, I'll keep trying to get a stronger llama, because I might need it for a wild wolf sorter. Okay, thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day. Bye bye.